Washington considered the sluggishness in getting the government up and running to be a national embarrassment. He was determined not to add to it. As this delay must be very irksome to the attending members, I am resolved no interruption shall proceed from me that can well be avoided, he assured James Madison by mail. Madison's in New York. The House of Representatives was still debating codfish and molasses when on the afternoon of April 22nd, Congress learned that George Washington had reached the Jersey shore. Washington left Mount Vernon accompanied by his aide, David Humphreys, his secretary, Tobias Lear, his enslaved manservant, Billy Lee, and the hopeful Charles Thompson, a man who might have headed an executive department but didn't. They crossed the Potomac at Georgetown, headed north toward Baltimore across the rolling hills that some Potomac Valley promoters, Washington among them, hoped might become the site of the nation's permanent capital. He had hoped to travel in as quiet and peaceable a manner as possible to conserve his energy. But that was not to be. The entire route was as warm with cheering, shouting, flag-waving well-wishers, throwing flowers at him, holding up their babies, and demanding speeches. Towns that had cannon fired them. Veterans marched alongside him for miles. Men wept. Banners proclaimed a new era and behold the rising empire. Though he slipped the crowds when he could, he agreed when pressed to deliver addresses in Baltimore, Wilmington, and Philadelphia, where 20,000 people, half the city's population, thronged the cobbled streets shouting, "Long live the father of his people!" And a laurel wreath fit for a Roman emperor was placed on his head. More cheering crowds were waiting for him on the New Jersey bank of the Delaware River, where he had famously crossed during the war. Crisply uniformed cavalry and infantry escorted him to Trenton, between ranks of girls crowned with garlands who strewed flowers before his feet and sang odes of glory. The Gazette of the United States proclaimed that Washington had become virtually divine, standing, quote, upon a scale of eminence that heaven never before assigned to a mortal. Expectations were high. Finally, on the morning of April 23rd, at Elizabeth, New Jersey, he was met by a committee of both houses of Congress, John Jay, numerous New York City officials, and the uniformed rotundity of his Revolutionary War colleague, Henry Knox. Dressed in a blue and buff suit that recalled his wartime uniform, and seated imperially beneath an awning hung with red curtains, Washington was rowed across the Hudson River in a 47-foot barge manned by 13 pilots dressed in white garments and black caps, as flag-festooned ships fired cannonades across the harbor. As if inspired by the jubilation, porpoises leaped and dove around the barge. Eyewitness account. Near Bedloe's Island, the future site of the Statue of Liberty, a boatload of gentlemen and ladies trilled a welcoming ode to the tune of "God Save the King." As Washington neared the Manhattan shore, passed around the Battery, and turned north up the East River to the booming of artillery, huzzas rose from multitudes of men, women, and children, packed as thick as ears of corn before the harvest. Another observer recalled the successive motion of hats being doffed from the Battery to Murray's Wharf like the rolling of the sea.